Hey, what's up my little adventure buddies? Today I want to show you how to fly a drone to get people to not click off your videos.
Explore that sings. I'm Michael Wright, this adventures and things.
Hi, I'm Michael Wright, and normally on this channel I do miscellaneous adventures and things. And I've had quite a few people reach out to me and say, hey Mike, how do you fly your drone? Can you give us some tips on how to fly a drone? And I just want to preface this by saying I'm by no means an expert, but I have worked with a lot of experts in the film industry, and every time I do, I love to pick their brains and get ideas on how to fly drones better. So I've gotten some tips from them that I want to share with you that will hopefully help you fly your drone better and get you more cinematic footage. So the first tip, and it may seem kind of silly, but it's something that I was kind of led astray at first, is settings. So you can just buy your drone and just set it on auto and just go ahead, and if you're fine with that, awesome. But if you're here watching this, I assume that you don't want to just do that. So one of the things that I asked them was, well, what settings do you use? And they said it depends on the project. So if you're doing if you have a project that needs 24 frames per second, all the other cameras are shot with 24 frames a second, then your drone should be shot in 24 frames per second and 30 frames per second, so on and so forth. So when I first started, someone told me that I should always shoot in 60 frames per second, and I can slow it down if I want to. But the problem with that, and without getting into too much about how frame rate works, which I can do in another video, is you're taking a 60 frame per second project, or you're taking a 60 frame per second clip, and you're cutting it down to 24 frames per second. So that is almost half, that's over half of your frames that you're taking out of there. And I never really noticed it before until it was actually pointed out to me, but you get a little bit of a stutter effect in there, and you can actually see it, and the professionals can see it right away. I still sometimes am a little iffy if I can see it, but the professionals can see it right away when you start taking a 60 frame down to a 30 or to a 24 frames per second. There's a reason why you do that. It's to get the slow motion look. And you don't always need slow motion, contrary to what some people think. So I asked them, I was like, well, the whole idea with that was to just slow the footage down. What would you suggest? And, you know, sometimes the best answer is the harshest answer. And they said, you just need to learn to fly your drone better. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll do that. So basically what they said was just to slow your drone down. Like if you want it to be slower, slow it down. You don't need that slow motion look necessarily. Just fly your drone a little bit slower. And that's another setting that I like to use. Most of us out there will be using consumer level drones, which will be more than likely a Mavic drone. So you should have a cinematic mode. And I like using the cinematic mode because it gives you a smoother, more fluid movement. It's not so jerky, so when you go to stop, the drone just doesn't like stop like that and give you like a kind of weird look. It'll stop, you'll stop it, and it'll just keep going ahead a little bit. It just makes it a little smoother if you need that footage still. Now keep in mind that if you're flying up to something really close and you're like, okay, stop, and it's just like bam, and blows up everywhere, you don't want that to happen. I mean, the sensors should take over, but sometimes they don't. So keep that in mind. Another thing for settings is if you're shooting, do the 180 rule. And what that is if you're shooting in 24 frames per second, then you should be, your shutter speed should be double of your frame rate. So 24 frames per second, you'll shoot in 1/48th or 1/50th of a second for that. So the second tip is kind of one that I was curious about, because every time a drone pilot would get their drone up and they would seem to know where to go and what shots to get. Now sometimes you'll be working off a script or a shot list or a screenplay that'll say exactly what you need, what shot you need, but sometimes with documentary filmmaking or adventure filmmaking, it's kind of run and gun style, so you kind of want to know how to pick your shot and everything. And the tips that they gave me were just have an idea of what you want to shoot before you get your drone in the air, because sometimes I get my drone in the air and I'm like, oh yeah, this shot would be cool, oh yeah, this one, But you got to keep in mind, and I'll reiterate this, that it's just another camera and it's just giving you a different perspective. So it's not an RC toy to be ripping around up in the sky. I mean, you can use it for that if you want, but I'd suggest maybe getting an FPV drone if you were going to do that. So just kind of have an idea, pick your shot first. It's not a bad idea as well. I've seen some of them do this, and they say they'll take their drone up and take a look around of the landscape around them, and then get a better idea of what shot to get. Because sometimes you don't know how long your battery's gonna last. Like, it may say that the battery lasts for 20 minutes or a half an hour, but if it's strong wind conditions, or if it's cold out or if it's too hot out, then your battery life could potentially be way lower. So it's always a good idea to know what shot you want. So pick your shots before you get up. Kind of always go out with an idea of what you want to shoot. Sometimes it will change, but just make sure to pick your shots. So another tip that they gave me, and this is something that they said that they notice with a lot of new drone users, and I know that I am very guilty of this because of my spastic behavior, is don't move the camera too much. Once again, as I just said, it's just another camera, just giving you a different perspective. So you got to keep that in mind. You don't need to get it up there and be like, like you're a TIE fighter going to take on the Death Star or something like that. You just got to... Sometimes it's good just to hold the drone in one position. One shot that I see used quite a bit, I like to use it myself, other people use it, is just have the drone up and then pointed straight down, and a vehicle just drives through the frame, or someone walks through the frame. It's just simple like that. I'm not saying don't move the drone at all, because sometimes you get really good moving shots. Like if you're following a car along or anything like that. What I'm saying is don't just take it up and like go up and pan and tilt and spin it around and do all that stuff and be like, oh, I want to get all of this shot here. Just kind of know, and that's when it goes back to pick your shot, so kind of know what you want to do. If you're going to do a pan, a good friend of mine, Jordan Nicholson, who's been in the film industry for like over 25 years, told me if you're going to do a pan, have your pan last for at least 7 seconds. It makes it more professional. Now, when I say the movement as well, what I like to do and what a drone is really good for is an establishing shot. And I like to, sometimes if I'm going on a hike, I will show off the wilderness, the woods that I'm going to be hiking in. So I like to fly my drone over top, and you're looking at the trees, and sometimes I'll do that and then do a tilt down and go along. Yeah, don't move your camera so much. Don't move the drone a whole lot in the air. Make sure that your movements are precise and accurate and fluid, and that you just don't move it a lot. Sometimes it's better just to hold the frame. Which leads me into tip 4. And that is a rule that I learned for just filmmaking in general, and it's the 4-second rule and the 10-second rule. And I learned this from a guy named Andrew St. Pierre White, and the drone pilots that I've worked with have also reiterated it. So the 4-second rule is basically when you're out there filming, whatever you're filming and you want to get a shot, hold it for at least 4 seconds, at a bare minimum of 4 seconds. Now, if you're using a drone, get your shot for a bare minimum of 10 seconds. Now, there's been so many times where I've gone into my editing software and I just didn't have good footage because I got my drone in the air and I was just too spastic, and I was like, oh yeah, this is fun, and it wasn't good. Just so make sure that you hold your shot for a bare minimum of 10 seconds. You may not use that full 10 seconds, but it's good to hold it for that long so you know that you have the shot for sure. And then tip 5, and this is something that so many people out there have said, not just the drone pilots that I've worked with. I believe Casey Neistat has said this on one of his videos, but don't overuse your drone. I remember a few years back when I first got into this, before I had a drone, almost everyone's videos were full of drone footage. And then when I got a drone, it was just like, Okay, how many times can I use my drone? And I would only do adventures and things if I could take my drone up, not realizing that it doesn't really push the story forward and anything like that. Like, as I said in another tip, it's really good for an establishing shot. The top-down view is really good if you have a subject and it shows how alone they are in a vast space, kind of giving that like Lawrence of Arabia long shot look where you see the vast expanse and then a little character just like walking through or whatever. It's really good for that, but just don't overuse it. Don't overuse your drone. You don't have to use it in every single video. You don't have to use it in every other shot. This is a harsh lesson that I had to learn, but it's fun to use. It's fun to take out. Just you don't have to use it all the time. So those are the 5 best tips that I got from drone pilots, and I hope they helped you out. And once again, I'm by no means an expert. We're all trying to learn how to fly these things or get better footage and better cinematic footage. I'm just sharing the knowledge that I got from them, and I feel like it has helped me. And some of my fans seem to think that I do pretty decent drone footage. I don't really know. I don't see it myself, but they've asked, so here it is. I hope it helps you. I hope that you become a better drone pilot and just think about your drone flying the next time you're out there. If it does help you, if there's some tips that you would like to share, leave them in the comments below. If if you want more filmmaking tips or more adventures and things, then I highly suggest you subscribe. It really does help the channel, and I do appreciate it. And don't forget to get out for some adventures and things.